Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
The 4th of July holiday is usually when families and friends come together to celebrate. This isn't the case for the family of 28-year-old mother and certified nurse's assistant Audrey Scott. The loving mom has gone missing, and her family and friends are worried about her safety and seeking help in finding her. What happened to Audrey Scott? What happens when love becomes fatal? This is the Fatal Attraction Podcast with When a Killer Goes Free.
She was a devoted single mom who finally found the happiness she was searching for.
She was really into him.
And they just loved each other.
She wanted it to all come together.
Instead, everything fell apart.
She just vanished.
It was a panic, like every day.
I'm scared out of my mind.
Something is not right. I'm like, we gotta find my sister.
As the search begins, every answer leads to more questions.
She was keeping secrets.
I didn't know what my sister was dealing with.
I didn't know anything until she went missing.
Ultimately, the truth would shock everyone.
You start second guessing everything. The unbelievable becomes believable. It comes to reality.
July 4th, 2017. It's Independence Day in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and families are gathering for backyard barbecues and a few of the beers that made this hardworking city famous.
And everybody looks forward to that. That's a time when most people want to kind of cut loose.
For one Milwaukee family, what's supposed to be a day of relaxation and celebration quickly becomes an emergency.
My youngest daughter, Maxine, she came over and she said, "Mom, something's going on." She said, "Something ain't right."
So Audrey's not answering any of my calls or texts. I'm really starting to worry about her.
Maxine says that her older sister, 28-year-old Audrey Scott, called her and left a message the night before, but is now nowhere to be found.
Her sister kept frequent contact with her, either through phone calls or texts, and she thought it was odd she hadn't heard from her.
At first, Audrey's mom isn't all that concerned, thinking Audrey had stayed out late and was resting.
You take those outside.
I said, "Well, she could just be asleep. Wait till she wakes up or whatever."
Audrey and her boyfriend, 28-year-old Sammy Miller, had gone downtown to celebrate the holiday the night before.
They went downtown to just have a good time.
I had her daughter, the oldest one, with me, and the little one was with her father's family.
But as the long summer day grows dark and there's still no word from Audrey, her family starts to panic.
That's where the uneasy feelings set in because she hasn't spoken to any one of her babies.
It's very out of character for her not to talk to her kids and check on them. It was very weird.
We need to find out where she at and what's going on.
28-year-old Audrey Scott had always enjoyed a close bond with family.
And we were always there for each other. We don't always see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, we all come together. We might bicker and nag and fight and whatever all day long, but if one of us needs the other, we're there.
Everyone has ups and downs and spats, but everyone loves each other with all their heart.
Despite some sibling rivalry, Audrey always made sure her family felt loved.
She made everybody feel like they were the most special.
She was always making sure that everyone was taken care of.
Audrey's desire to care for others extended far beyond her immediate family, too.
Imagine a kid that take in puppies, and that's how she was with people. So you might come home to find a couple people who hasn't eaten in the house eating.
She had a really giving heart. She'd give you her last if you needed it more than she did.
Audrey's nurturing instinct had also led to her career as a certified nursing assistant working with the elderly.
That's why she got into being a CNA. She wanted to help.
She liked the bond that she built with her patients.
She was there for them.
Even though Audrey loved her work as a nurse's assistant, she longed to do more.
She wanted to get a group home and work with adolescent girls because she thought that she could get through to them.
She wanted to be that person that give them a listening ear.
Part of Audrey's desire to help came from her own experience of becoming a teenage mother.
Audrey, she had my niece when she was 14. And she had no idea what she was getting into. I don't think she meant to get pregnant, but it happened.
Audrey was able to lean on family for support. But even as a teenager, she accepted her responsibility as a mother to her child.
She lived at home with us, but the motherly duties, she did all that on her own. She set it up where she went to school and the baby went to daycare with her in her school.
She would be really hard on herself because she couldn't be everything that she wanted to be, but she definitely got the job done.
Now, at 28 years old, with 2 children and a strong career, Audrey had found her way.
Her kids were very important to her.
She always made sure they had what they needed.
She just thought, this is something I'm supposed to do, and that's not a big deal, but it was to me.
Despite all her success, Audrey had always struggled when it came to love.
She wanted a husband. She wanted to settle down, and I think the young men that she was involved in just wasn't ready to go to that level yet.
However, in 2015, it looked as if Audrey might have finally found the one in an old friend named Sammy Miller.
He was from the old neighborhood. They went to high school together. It was Mother's Day. He contacted her over on Facebook and wished her a happy Mother's Day. And they started talking there, and he took her out to eat. Then he started picking her up and meeting her and all that, and something blossomed out of it.
Audrey's family seemed to approve of her new man.
He was a great guy. He was taking her to church, and he was nice, and he was funny.
Sammy also appeared to have a clear plan for his future.
He was in college. He was getting his barber license. He already had it set up where he was going to be running his own shop through his cousin.
Before long, their relationship blossomed into something special. After a few months, Audrey and her daughters moved in with Sammy.
His aunt owned a duplex, so they lived in the lower space.
They were serious. Things were going good.
But now, on July 4th of 2017, Audrey's family is scrambling to locate her after she'd spent a rare night out on the town.
She went to the fireworks and she never came back.
And the fact that she didn't follow up when she got home, didn't follow up in the morning, is very unlike her.
Hoping it's all just a misunderstanding, the family begins making calls.
We need to figure out, has anyone spoke to her before we go into full panic mode?
When Audrey's mother contacts Audrey's cousin, Christina, they get a glimmer of hope.
Her cousin said I was with her last night.
She was downtown at a local bar, and Sammy was there.
Sammy ended up getting into a physical altercation, which led to him being thrown out of the bar.
And according to Christina, when she left, Audrey had decided to stay at the bar alone.
Audrey stayed in the bar.
Did she get picked up? Did she run into somebody she knew and maybe went with them somewhere?
She would not be gone and not say anything to anyone.
Something is not right.
The investigation reveals a tangled web of lies and deceit, leading to a shocking conclusion. Stay tuned for more Fatal Attraction.
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
In the summer of 2017, it looked as if 28-year-old single mother Audrey Scott had finally found lasting love with 28-year-old Sammy Miller.
She cared for him a lot, and he cared for her. And that was her dream, to have a family.
They spent a lot of time together, and things were going good.
But now, after a night out in downtown Milwaukee, Audrey has gone missing, and her family is starting to worry.
I had talked to her before the 4th of July, and then she told me he was going to the fireworks.
Even more troubling, Audrey's cousin Christina has just revealed that after the fireworks, she and Sammy had left Audrey in a downtown bar alone.
He gets thrown out of the bar, and she didn't leave out of the bar with Sammy. She decides to stay.
As soon as Audrey's family hears that she'd been left alone in the bar that night, they begin to fear the worst.
They're worried that maybe she got robbed and she doesn't have her phone. There's a lot of different concerns.
And first thing the next morning, Audrey's mother contacts the police.
Yes, I need to report a missing person. It's my daughter.
And I'm like, I have her oldest daughter with me. She has called her about her. There's something that's not right here.
And you sure she had her phone?
Yeah. She always has her phone with her when we have the kids. This is not like her at all.
She would have answered the phone for somebody. Somebody would know that she's okay.
She was the kind of person that always kept her family close and her friends close, would always be responsible and respond to messages on social media. She would also return their phone calls.
Anybody we can speak to that might have seen her yesterday?
Her cousin was with her at a bar last night. I guess there was some trouble there. She's here with me now.
May I speak to her, please?
While detectives fill out the report, Audrey's cousin Christina walks them through what happened on July 3rd, the night of the fireworks show.
Audrey went down to see the Big Bang with Sammy, and then they ended up stopping in to have a drink.
And the fireworks show downtown by the lakefront was actually really close to where this bar is.
Inside the bar, Sammy had gone off to order drinks while Audrey made her way to the dance floor and ran into her cousin Christina.
She gave Christina a hug. Hey, cousin, what you doing down here?
Christina says that after meeting up with Audrey, she'd followed her cousin onto the dance floor.
She's dancing with her and just having a good time.
But when Sammy returned from the bar, the cousin's good time took an unexpected turn for the worse.
Sammy walks past her, then he just turns around and swings and hits her with a haymaker.
Christina says she don't know what went on. She just turned around and he just punched her. She don't know why. He just punched her.
It was only afterward that Sammy realized his mistake.
Christina dresses like a boy. She looks like a boy.
My cousin got dreads, and Sammy didn't know, and Sammy got jealous.
He sees what he thought was a male talking to his woman, and he was not going to stand for it. He's probably had some drinks, and without even checking in to see what's going on, he just sucker punches the cousin.
And by that time, it was too late.
There was a physical altercation that occurred.
Bouncers were able to jump in and break it up.
Christina and Sammy were kicked out of the bar.
However, according to Christina, Audrey had opted to stay.
So you and Sammy left her there?
Yeah. She said she didn't want to stop having fun just because he messed up.
Did Sammy speak to you after that?
He apologized or whatever, but that was it. I went home and I haven't heard from Audrey since.
Audrey said that she was going to find her way home from the bar.
She decided she wanted to continue her night and have a good time.
That's the last time anybody ever saw her.
After listening to Christina's story, detectives' first priority is tracking down Audrey's boyfriend, 28-year-old Sammy Miller.
One of our concerns was talking to him to see if he not only knew what had happened to her, maybe he had heard from her. So we tried at his house at least once or twice, and we could not find him at that point.
After failed attempts to reach Sammy at home, he gets word that detectives are looking for him, and he makes a call to the police station.
He made contact with the police department by phone, but he was asked to come into the police station.
Once in the interview room, Sammy begins by telling detectives that he has no idea where Audrey is.
This isn't like her at all. I don't know where she could be.
He just said he hasn't seen her since that night and she hasn't called him.
He also confirms much of what Audrey's cousin Christina had already told detectives.
Sammy tells us that after the fireworks show, they went to nearby bars, and he admitted Christina and him ended up getting into a physical altercation, which led to him being thrown out of the bar.
Where'd you go after that?
Ran into some friends, hitched a ride home.
What time was this?
Around midnight, maybe 12:30.
Anyone see you come home?
My auntie, she owns the duplex where I stay.
He said he ended up being dropped off back at his house and stayed there for the remainder of the night.
Sammy does tell detectives that he called Audrey around 1 o'clock that morning to apologize for what he'd done, but that she wouldn't answer his calls.
I know I overreacted. I just figured she was still angry, and that's why she wasn't taking my calls.
Audrey was clearly angry with Sammy that night.
And then he called her and she didn't answer.
When asked about their relationship, Audrey's boyfriend admits they have their ups and downs, but says it's hardly anything out of the ordinary.
As Sammy described it, they went through what people ordinarily go through, especially when they're in their 20s.
For the moment, detectives don't have any evidence to hold Sammy or any proof that Audrey's met with foul play. After letting Sammy go, the detectives decide to do a full background check, and what they find is alarming.
Sammy was no stranger to the criminal justice system.
He was on probation or parole status at the time with the Department of Corrections.
But it's what Sammy is on parole for that really raises a red flag.
He did 8 years, and I'm like, oh my God, he was in jail for murder.
The investigation reveals a tangled web of lies and deceit, leading to a shocking conclusion. Stay tuned for more Fatal Attraction.
Less than 48 hours after Audrey Scott disappeared after a night out in downtown Milwaukee, detectives have some new information about Audrey's boyfriend, 28-year-old Sammy Miller.
He did 8 years in prison, and it was because he killed someone in an attempted robbery.
The incident occurred when Sammy was only 18.
He tried to plan a robbery, and he used a firearm to commit this robbery. The person tried to turn it on him and grabbed the gun and fired him and killed him.
Though convicted of murder, Sammy's age at the time of the crime and the fact that it was his first offense led the judge to show leniency toward him to serve the majority of his sentence on parole.
He didn't have a criminal record in the past. He was a good student, so the judge gave him a break, but he still killed somebody.
Now detectives have to wonder, could Sammy's checkered past have had something to do with Audrey Scott's disappearance?
He's got a history of violence.
So he was definitely a person of interest.
Hoping to learn more about what really happened the night Audrey disappeared, police go to the downtown Milwaukee bar where she was last seen.
We now wanted to grab as much surveillance video as possible.
Footage from inside the bar appears to confirm both Sammy and Christina's accounts of what happened that night.
The video from the bar showed Christina and Audrey dancing, as well as the physical fight that occurred.
You see Sammy confronting them both. There's some pushing and shoving going on. Ultimately, you see then Sammy arguing with Audrey. There was some words spoken back and forth. The argument got heated.
There's no audio, but looks like she was certainly yelling at him.
Christina, the cousin, they kind of get into it a little bit. There's some physical altercation there. And ultimately, the bouncers at the bar put them both outside.
Security cameras outside capture what happened next.
Christina got into a vehicle that was parked nearby and left.
Sammy is seen outside the bar, apparently waiting on Audrey.
He He said he stood by outside and was looking through the windows of the bar, but ended up leaving with his friends.
He does not come back to the bar.
Meanwhile, the surveillance video inside the bar reveals that Audrey stuck around for almost an hour.
It shows her staying in the bar, her staying and dancing and things like that, in an effort to try to salvage the night and enjoy herself.
What Audrey was wearing that night, a unique Green Bay Packer jersey on with the number 12, which is Aaron Rodgers, and she was wearing jean shorts. This all stood out on the video from the bar.
Then, at a little before 1 o'clock in the morning, the exterior cameras recorded Audrey leaving the bar.
Audrey walked off on her own, and she's last seen walking down the street from the bar's entrance.
She left by herself and nobody followed her.
And that's really the last piece of footage that we have of her.
What happened next and Audrey's whereabouts remain a mystery, and detectives now have to consider multiple scenarios.
Possibly it was just a random act. She's a female and, she was at least somewhat intoxicated leaving the bar. I mean, it was 4th of July weekend, so the bars would have been busy.
There could be a possibility that somebody else at the bar saw what happened, saw that she was no longer with her male companion and moved in on her. Or she was walking down an alley and got assaulted.
Every once in a while, we do have individuals from that area disappear.
Before she went missing, there was another incident where there was a woman who was abducted from down on Water Street.
Another theory is that based on where she was last seen, Audrey could have been the victim of a tragic accident.
There's a river that runs through downtown Milwaukee. Sometimes people are intoxicated, and we have had missing individuals that have jumped into the river or wandered into the river and drowned.
At this point, Crimes Division is calling the local hospitals to see if maybe something had happened to her.
Unfortunately for detectives, the search proves to be a dead end. And with no hospital admissions fitting Audrey's description, detectives shift their focus to verifying Sammy Miller's alibi.
With the police having nothing else to go on, they had to fill in the cracks in his story.
Detectives begin by reaching out to Sammy's aunt, Debbie Mitchell.
Sammy lived with this aunt.
Sammy's aunt was cooperative from the get-go. She allowed us to come into the home. She allowed us to search Sammy's area to see if there was anything of value for us in leading to finding Audrey, but nothing of interest was found at that time.
Sammy's aunt also confirms his alibi.
She says that he came home at 1 o'clock and didn't leave until mid-morning that morning.
Since his aunt's story puts Sammy home at roughly the same time Audrey left the bar, detectives essentially rule him out as a possible suspect.
At that point, we don't have much to go on.
While the search of her home produced no evidence, Sammy's aunt does give detectives not just one, but two potential leads. First, she suggests detectives talk to Sammy's friend, Larry Brown.
They knew each other in prison, and they end up being like brothers.
His aunt said Larry did know Audrey, and maybe Larry was jealous.
The aunt had an uncomfortable feeling. She passed this on to the police.
But for detectives, it's the other lead that really sends up red flags.
Sammy also had another girlfriend.
Her name is Natalie Martin.
Natalie was involved in Sammy's life. On the side, maybe Natalie was at the bar at night and saw them together.
A jealous girlfriend may have some motivation to do harm.
The investigation reveals a tangled web of lies and deceit, leading to a shocking conclusion. Stay tuned for more Fatal Attraction.
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
Milwaukee detectives investigating the disappearance of 28-year-old Audrey Scott have just learned her boyfriend, Sammy Miller, has been hiding something.
He had another relationship that Aubrey didn't know about.
Could Sammy's secret lover, 26-year-old Natalie Martin, have something to do with Audrey's disappearance?
Was she at the bar? Was she tracking Sammy? Was she a jealous type? Was she gonna follow him and saw him speaking with Audrey? What exactly is her role in this situation?
Brought in for questioning by detectives, Natalie admits that she and Sammy have what she describes as a casual relationship.
She described it as them being friends, but that they also had sexual relations with each other.
In fact, Natalie says she had spent time with Sammy just hours before Audrey disappeared.
She stated that Sammy dropped her off at her residence prior to going out that evening.
Asked whether she followed Sammy downtown that evening, Natalie says she spent the night at home. Although she does admit to texting Sammy several times over the course of the evening.
She had reached out to Sammy several times. He hadn't responded.
She stated that was odd for him, that when they would communicate, Sammy and her, he would almost get back with her by text or by phone call immediately.
Natalie's obvious frustration at being unable to reach Sammy raises detectives' suspicions.
That would be another motive to get rid of Audrey.
However, when detectives follow up on her alibi, they have little choice but to rule her out.
Her mother saw her, spent the evening with her, and they confirmed that she was at the house. Kind of takes out the possibility that Natalie was involved.
Detectives move on to the other person Sammy's aunt had mentioned, his friend, Larry Brown.
Larry and Sammy Miller were in prison together, and they had worked together in that prison and formed a friendship while they were there.
Despite their friendship, Sammy's aunt suspected that Larry'd had his eye on Audrey.
These were people that all kind of knew each other and hung out together. So it wasn't far-fetched for them to be considered potentially to be in a relationship or to be having an affair or to be involved at some level.
Or was it possible Larry had made advances and Audrey turned him down? When detectives bring Larry in for questioning, the ex-con swears he'd never betray his friend Sammy.
Larry Brown describes the relationships like brothers.
No.
He also denies having any feelings for Audrey.
So you weren't playing Audrey behind Sammy's back?
No, never.
Well, Larry had a girlfriend, so he wouldn't have done that.
Asked where he was the night Audrey disappeared, Larry says he was home alone. But while that leaves him without an alibi, detectives have no way to connect him to Audrey's disappearance.
His explanation probably was looked at with some suspicion, but they had to at least take that for face value until they got additional information.
While detectives are running down leads, the family continues searching for Audrey.
It was a panic, like everyday worrying, posting on Facebook.
We went pounding the streets with flyers, asking door to door, had anybody seen her or anybody had any information? We were all out every day, nonstop. I wasn't gonna quit until we found her.
Audrey's mother isn't the only one either.
Sammy was going around with different family members, helping them look.
He was so concerned about my sister's well-being.
Sammy and the family's efforts produce immediate results.
These flyers did generate some phone calls to us saying people had seen her in the area. We were getting some people who thought they had seen her at either a local store or walking down the street.
In the end, none of the tips pans out.
Those were false leads, but we did have to track those down and interview those people that said they had seen her.
By the end of August, Audrey's trail has gone cold, and her family begins to lose hope they'll ever find her.
We just ran out of ground to cover and we hadn't heard anything from anyone. That's when it started. I'm like, she's not here anymore.
But an anonymous tip on August 28th may finally give Audrey's family and the detectives the answers they desperately need.
He calls police and he says that he has information regarding the disappearance of Audrey.
They had run into a guy at a corner store in the city, and this person said he was present when Audrey was last seen and was abducted.
And according to the informant, the man who'd claimed to know what happened to Audrey was none other than Sammy's old friend, Larry Brown.
The investigation reveals a tangled web of lies and deceit, leading to a shocking conclusion. Stay tuned for more Fatal Attraction.
28-year-old mother of two, Audrey Scott, has been missing for almost 2 months when Milwaukee investigators get a critical break in the case.
Detective Bell.
They got a tip from somebody to go talk to Larry Brown.
We immediately decided to get Larry, bring him down to the interrogation room, and we started talking to him.
The last time detectives talked to Larry, he denied having any knowledge of Audrey's disappearance. But now, when detectives reveal what they've learned, Larry quickly caves.
There's a lot you left out of your story last time, Larry.
The story is definitely evolving, but ultimately Larry wanted to tell us what happened.
You need to tell us what you know. I didn't have anything to do with it, all right? Sammy called me in the middle of the night just bugging out.
Larry's news story begins around 3 a.m. on the morning of July 4th, with a sudden flurry of calls from his close friend, Sammy Miller.
He ignored the first few calls, but ultimately he decided to answer the phone. And Sammy said he wanted him to come out and meet him.
Larry tells detectives that he'd met Sammy in a nearby parking lot where he was waiting in a parked SUV.
He said he noticed somebody was sitting in the front passenger seat, but couldn't tell who it was at first.
Larry says it's only after Sammy told him to get in the back seat that he realized the woman sitting in front of him was Audrey.
He said the only reason he knew the person in the front passenger seat was Audrey was because of her voice.
According to Larry, Audrey had apparently suffered a brutal beating.
Sammy beat her up.
Bad.
He had realized Sammy had beat Audrey to this point.
Larry explains that when Sammy said he needed Larry's help, he didn't say no.
Larry felt it was almost dangerous at this point to question anything that was happening.
Why'd you get in the car?
I knew it wasn't going to end well, but Sammy told me to get in the car. I got in.
What followed, according to Larry, was a tense half-hour drive to a heavily wooded area outside of town.
Larry said at this point, Sammy got out of the driver's seat and he yanked Audrey from the vehicle, and Audrey fell onto the ground.
He describes her as begging for her life. He describes her telling Sammy that, "I have kids, please don't kill me."
Larry said he stood by the car, not really sure about what was going to happen.
Larry says that while he stood stunned by what he was witnessing, Sammy had hauled Audrey to her feet.
Sammy then forces her into the wooded area approximately 20 to 30 feet from the road. Remains out by the car, but after a short time, he can hear one gunshot.
And then Sammy walked out of the woods back to the vehicle.
Did you see him shoot her?
No. He walked out there with her. I heard the shot. He came back alone.
They get back in the car and they drive to Milwaukee.
Once again, according to Larry, they rode in silence.
At this point, Larry's describing to us a situation where he may be the hostage in the situation.
Did he threaten you?
He had the gun in his hand the whole way back. What do you think?
Larry admits to helping Sammy clean that car, which has blood in it.
It's a damning story, if it's true.
Unfortunately, we were lied to all the time as detectives, but we didn't have any other choice but to follow up on this and to believe him at that point.
Can you help us find her body?
Yeah, I can take you there.
We were hoping to find her alive, but if this is truthful, our concern is finding her. We want to give closure to the family and let her know that we had found her. So Detective Bell and I put Larry in a squad car.
And he starts directing us to the area that he believes Audrey was killed by Sammy.
Larry points them in the same direction where Sammy took Audrey, and the detectives head into the woods. Detectives search for an hour and a half, but are unable to locate Audrey's remains.
We had to consider the fact that maybe Larry had made this up to make it seem like he was being cooperative.
But then, just as they are on the verge of giving up, one of the detectives spots something.
I looked down to my left, I saw a Packer jersey, and the last thing Audrey was seen in was a number 12 Packer jersey.
After 2 months of uncertainty, it looks as if the missing woman has finally been found.
This is a full almost 8 weeks later, so her body is decomposed.
They essentially found bones, jean cutoff shorts, and an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
The clothing was key. That's how we really knew that that was Audrey.
Now detectives face the grim task of informing her family.
When they came to the house, I don't remember much. Everything went into a fog.
Now we know 100% she's gone. There's no hope. None. That was the most devastating blow.
And breaking the news to Audrey's daughters is one of the hardest things her family has ever had to do.
Nobody wanted to tell the baby. That was the saddest thing. How do you tell a 7-year-old that her mom is not coming home?
The next day, when autopsy results return, they appear to match Larry's description of how Audrey died.
The medical examiner determined that there was a hole that appeared to be in the sternum area of the jersey and a corresponding hole to the sternum area of Audrey.
Without the bullet caliber or murder weapon, would Larry Brown's story be enough to convince a jury that Sammy is Audrey's killer?
If this was Sammy Miller's plan to kill Audrey, to drive her out in the middle of nowhere, to hide that evidence, to hide the body, why do you bring along an eyewitness that you don't need?
What detectives need is a witness who can back up Larry's version of events, and they're pretty sure they know where to find one.
They're going to go back to Sammy's aunt.
A lot of times when we're doing these investigations, when you're able to confront people, once it becomes apparent they're being drawn into a homicide investigation, they become a little more forthcoming.
The dominoes start to fall.
The investigation reveals a tangled web of lies and deceit, leading to a shocking conclusion. Stay tuned for more Fatal Attraction.
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
2 months after 28-year-old mother of 2 Audrey Scott disappeared after a night out on the town, an ex-con named Larry Brown has just identified Audrey's boyfriend, Sammy Miller, as the man who shot her and left her body in the woods outside Milwaukee.
Her final words was, "What about her kids?" That was her final words. And that couldn't even sway him. He was an evil monster.
But before they make an arrest, detectives need more proof that Sammy actually pulled the trigger.
If you believe Larry's story, Sammy went out of his way to leave an eyewitness. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. If you had a plan to kill her, to drive out and do it with your best friend there.
Hoping to find a crack in Sammy's alibi, detectives bring in Sammy's aunt, Debbie Mitchell, for another round of questioning.
I don't know what else I can really tell you.
Initially, the aunt does want to try to cover for Sammy, which isn't uncommon in these investigations.
Debbie previously told detectives that Sammy had spent the night at home, but once detectives reveal what they know, her story begins to change.
We found her body. He beat her up and shot her to avoid going back to prison. We have a witness that confirmed all of this.
We know you're trying to protect him, so it's time you tell us the truth.
This time, Sammy's aunt says that after coming home from the bar at 1 a.m., her nephew didn't go to bed as she'd initially claimed. Instead, he asked to borrow her SUV, the same vehicle Larry said Sammy was driving that evening.
This wasn't uncommon for her because Sammy would borrow the car from time to time.
She gives him the keys.
Sammy's aunt says he'd returned the next morning. And then she adds another detail that matches Larry Brown's account of the murder.
When Sammy returned the car that was cleaned,
I should have told you before. I didn't really want to believe that he would do this.
After Sammy's aunt tells all, detectives are confident they have enough to make an arrest.
Sammy was brought into the downtown police headquarters to be interviewed.
During the interview, detectives reveal that Audrey's remains have been found.
At that point, Sammy immediately requested to have a lawyer.
Detectives counter Sammy's request by booking him on murder charges.
Getting a formal charge on Sammy Miller for this case is rewarding for us. But again, the big piece of this was finding Audrey. And I think that really is the goal, to provide the closure for the family to put their loved one to rest.
But for Audrey's family, the alleged killer's identity comes as a horrible shock.
I just wanted to hurt him. I wanted to hurt him. I was so upset.
I just don't understand how somebody could live with someone, be in the household, see their kids every day, and then take their mother away from them.
There's an even bigger shock coming for Audrey's family when they learn that Sammy's an ex-con already on parole for murder.
I didn't know what my sister was dealing with someone like that, a monster like that.
Regardless if it was a botched robbery or this judge thought that he was this good kid led astray, he should have done more time.
8 years for a life was ridiculous. And if he only gets 8 years for what he did to my sister, I don't know, I think the whole family would go insane.
He a demon. And he needed to be locked away forever.
When Sammy's trial gets underway in May of 2018, the prosecutors contend that Sammy's past is what motivated him to kill again.
He's physically assaulted Audrey. He knew he was going to be in trouble.
He killed her because he didn't want to go back to prison.
Prosecutors believe they have plenty of evidence to do just that, starting with the testimony of Sammy's friend Larry Brown and his aunt Debbie Mitchell.
Without other testimony, it was going to be hard to prove this case.
Prosecutors assert that after returning home from the bar, Sammy had driven his aunt's SUV over to where Audrey was staying and lured her outside.
There is a physical confrontation where Sammy assaults her very badly.
At that point, Sammy panicked and contacted his friend, Larry Brown.
Larry's version supported the narrative that the state wanted to prove to a jury.
But if Sammy had hoped to avoid prison by killing Audrey, his plan had gone horribly awry.
Sammy Miller was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide. He received life in prison without the possibility of parole.
While Audrey's family is relieved that he will never again see the light of day, they're not prepared to call it justice. Instead, they consider Audrey's death just the opposite.
You give this guy a reset at life only after 8 years, and my loved one's life is gone.
He should have done more time. Had he been given a tighter sentence, he wouldn't have been out to take my daughter away from me.
He just took a piece of us, each and every one of us, and then we have to sit there and we have to look at our daughters and see the pain in their face.
There's a chamber of my heart that's missing. I miss her. Probably miss her forever.
It should be noted that love can sometimes become fatal, and deception often lies between love and hate. When a person dies, those left behind are left with memories, and it is up to us to cherish and remember them always. Audrey's family continues to miss her every day. Coming up on the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
These three friends were more than just roommates.
They were like brothers. You could never pull them apart.
They had like an unbreakable bond.
But behind closed doors, trouble was brewing.
That's when the experimenting started.
Doing a certain drug can change people.
And it would boil over in the most horrifying way.
Have you ever experienced a situation where your friends become your family? It's a beautiful feeling, but what happens when betrayal enters the picture? This is the story of a trio of high school friends who considered each other family. They were excited about their future until love turned into hate. And two roommates mysteriously vanished. What happened to Delano Wingfield and Leon Young? Tune in to the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast. We will see you in the next episode.